coming up, I feel a lot of density right now in the world. And it's discouraging sometimes. And I'm sure that people who are listening to us right now might also be feeling that density and the darkness. And it's so hard sometimes to be incarnated in this world, especially when you're so sensitive to all of these energies. And you're longing for something more subtle, more divine, more connected to truth and love.
Yes.
So what could you say that do we maybe we are living this density right now because we're preparing for this coming back of Avalon, or this connection to Avalon and the return of the king? Or I don't know.
That's quite possible what you're saying, and it's really a very relevant, the thing that you bring up, because like on the hero's journey, for most of us, from the soul, we have to find or experience an urgency in life, or a density or a pressure to start moving. And we can see that in the lower phase of the tree, we just can't find the solutions any longer. You know, our politicians, our economical leaders, the scientists, they can't find the resolution to end the war, or other economical problems, or hunger, or whatever it is in the world. So there has to be an urgency. What we are trying to do, first of all, is to find our own individual movement. And how does the inner king awaken from its slumber and start connecting our normal daily life with the world of the spirit?
Hello, Synchronauts. How are you? It's so good to see you after a long time. We've kind of been on vacation, but not really. My name is Aida from Mexxicamelot, and I want to give the warmest of welcomes to my teacher and friend, Mike Bais from Circle of Avalon. How are you today, dear Mike?
I'm very well, thank you, and happy to do another podcast here. It's been a while. I don't know how long, but
it's been
long
a
enough.
While. Yeah, because
exactly.
You've been doing a lot of interesting things. So you went to the UK to teach a course. Can you tell us a little bit more about it? What it was about and what you did?
This year, last May, I went to the UK to do the hero's journey. Of course, everything to do with the hero's journey of Camelot and Avalon, the whole story of the Round Table. And or the beginning actually of September, I was there for a Kabbalah workshop as well. Yeah.
And so, but you also have some news for us, right? About your upcoming book with Watkins.
Yeah,
can you tell us a little bit more about it?
Very intense work last year, and that manuscript is well, more or less finished. Of course, there's some work to be done, but my work is done. And we have the new Kabbalah book coming out on the 13th of February next year, 2024, published by Watkins Books in London. It will be a beginner's guide to Kabbalah, but having read it again last week, I again see that it will also be a very good book for people who are already on the way, because it's packed with information, and also with I think a very original story in it there. So I'm very happy with it. Yeah,
it's always good to go back to the basics, and something that I really appreciate from your books, because you already have 2 books published on Kabbalah and Science. And the thing is, they're very practical, which is, I think, something that any student of Kabbalah can really appreciate, because one thing is what we are reading, and like the written tradition is one thing. But then moving that into the practice, and particularly what I would say is, if Synchronauts are listening to us right now and they're studying Kabbalah, it's important to get a teacher to connect you with the oral tradition, because many things on paper don't seem to make much sense. But then when you have somebody explaining to you through the oral tradition, then you can integrate it better in the practice. But if you don't have that possibility, then having the chance to read your books, because I've also read this book that is coming out from Watkins, and I really like it. As you say, it's just as good as it would be for a beginner who has really no idea about Kabbalah, but also for the more experienced students to go back to the basics and remember, no, what is this about? How can I apply this to the 21st century, which is a very important thing, because many Kabbalistic teachings come from many hundreds of years ago, or even older than that. And the reality we're living now is very different from that of our forefathers. So it's important to bring those teachings to what is happening now, and how can that help me to be a better person and to follow that middle path, no, and do my teshuvah, do my rectification, so that I can bring heaven down to earth. No, I think that's what's so precious about your teachings. Definitely.
Thank you. Yeah, that's it. I mean, the metaphysics is still intact, but how to wrap it up in a new form that may be better understood in these times and in this world. So yeah.
And that's also one of the reasons why we're doing this series of videos, to share with people, like, okay, how do these myths, no, because you work with the mythology of the Arthurian, no, Camelot, Avalon, which is our topic today.
Yes.
And you work with also the ASA, so you're working also with the lineage of Joseph of Arimathea, and that has to do with the Grail as well, the Grail quest, and also the Kabbalah. So these are three things that might seem like, what do they have to do one with the other? Everything is connected. And the purpose of these roundtables is precisely to share some of that information with people who might be looking for this information, which was my case. That's why you and I connected, because I was looking for a mentor to show me about these things, because I live in the Americas, I live in Mexico, you're in Europe, you're in the Netherlands.
Yeah.
So obviously the points of view and the mythologies are very different on this side of the world than the other one, although they reflect very much. They're very similar, but not quite the same. So if we want to learn about your topics of specialty, this is a good place to start. And we're doing it as a service. But you're also writing a book about Avalon and the Arthurian, no? It's going to come in a couple of years, maybe?
I hope so. Yeah. I mean, I put it in the fridge because I had to do a few other things, like this book for Watkins. But yeah, I can't wait to start with it. But I can't promise anything. But there's a lot of material already being written. Yeah.
And in the meantime, we have these spaces. So we're gonna have we're gonna go to the presentation now, and it's gonna be a shorter video than other times, because obviously before recording we get together and we discuss some things, and this time around we had to we were putting the cherries on top of the cake, because the presentation you're about to see is amazing, but also, like, it's gonna come in the coming recordings. You will see how everything is like being weaved together, no? So I'm gonna start sharing screen now, so that people can see our today's presentation. And obviously we're gonna be talking about Avalon, because we were saying, okay, so we've talked about the round table, but now let's talk about Avalon, no? Which is like a very, very mystical topic, no? For those of us who have been in touch, for example, with either the novel or the movie or miniseries of The Mists of Avalon, it's very mystical, and it gives you a different perspective from other movies like Excalibur or other different, like, there are so many different stories about this. There's not just one narrative. There's a lot to choose from, but you're gonna share with us, like, you're bringing together information from a lot of sources, no, to give us like this compendium, so to speak, no? Am I correct?
Yeah, that's what I'm going to try. And well, we talked about this, of course, in preparation to this this first session in this series of Avalon. We have to start somewhere, and so I would like to bring everyone first under the attention of the earthly kingdom before going to Avalon, because then it's much easier to understand what Avalon is all about, because otherwise it remains quite abstract. So on the Tree of Life, this one, this is our key diagram. so to speak, because it has everything there, all the principles, and the whole Arthurian mythos is within this diagram. And as people may know, and otherwise you can see it in this picture, is that the whole of the human being is in there. So all the places that the myth is talking about, whether it be Camelot or Avalon, or some of the other places, or the characters, they're all within this diagram, and they're all within you, without exception. Although you may not experience it at the time, but it's all there. So I would like to start with you and with all the people with the idea of what was Camelot in the first place. What is that idea? Because we will come to this. There would be no Camelot without Avalon. So definitely. Camelot is the principle of a certain kind of kingdom. Now, we know in Kabbalah what the kingdom is. Indeed, you're already pointing it out. Thank you. That's Malkut, which in Hebrew means kingdom. But every tree of life that you see has within this Sephira, oh, that's very nice, thank you, has different layers or levels, or as we say in Kabbalah, worlds. So you have different kingdoms within each other. And let's say the lowest kingdom, I'm not mean in an ethical way, but in the worlds that are within each other, in the world of Asiya, that's the natural kingdom. So we are all born within that kingdom. Yeah. Those are the levels, the mineral, the vegetable, and the animal. And we participate in this natural earthly kingdom together with the stones, the minerals, and the plants, and the animals. And we are born in a natural vegetable and animal body. And from there, we raise a certain kingdom, like animals do. We have a property, we have a certain space that we reserve for each other, or we buy it in human terms. And that becomes our own natural kingdom. And it's being established and raised from a certain level of consciousness. And that consciousness resonates with the natural consistency of our psyche, which is in conformity with nature. Now, on the Tree of Life, we have talked about this when we talked about the round tables. We have the lower face on the Tree of Life. So that is Malkut, and then Hot, number 8, and then Tiferet, number 6, and then Netzach, number 7, and then back to Malkut in 10. So they have that kite shape. That's sometimes called the lower face of the Tree of Life. And at the center, you have there Yesod. Wow, that's great.
Magic.
Yeah, exactly. You must be from Avalon.
I am, yes. I got lost in the way, and I'm here in the Malkut.
Well, it's good to have you here.
For the adventure, yeah.
Yeah, we couldn't do without. And that's the lower phase of the Tree of Life. That's the natural part of the Tree of Life, with the natural kingdom in Malkut. So here we have the different levels. We are born in those levels, and we operate through them from our very birth until the last day that we are here on this earth. And without any reason to develop ourselves above that, we don't know any better, and that is our world, that's the world around us, and it is most of the time in resonance with our own inner world. So we function within a world based upon those 3 levels of mineral, vegetable, animal, and because we don't need any other things around us, our inner state, our psychological state, is also in accordance with that. Now, why am I telling you all this? Because that has nothing to do so much with Camelot as a very special kingdom here. here we talk about the natural kingdom.
Okay.
And the most of the kingdoms that we have found on this planet built by humanity are what we are talking about now. They are natural kingdoms. They're made in the same image and likeness of how, how ants build their nest.
Exactly.
Or a
That's what I was
lion's
just
den.
thinking. Yeah.
Yeah. Very
Okay.
sophisticated, by the way. Very intelligent. So it's not that I want to degrade that kind of living at all. Everything is in it that you need to have a natural, harmonious life in accord with nature. And it's part of the whole drama, of the whole opera that we live in. So that's great. Nothing, unnatural about it.
Yeah.
Now at the center of that lower phase, we have number 9 that just saw it, and that's the tribal consciousness. So that's the identity that we have when we belong to a certain kingdom. Oh, that's great. Thank you. Yeah. So that's our yesodic image of our own person, our ego, and also our place within a group. So this can be a family. We talked about this before, or it can be, a nation or a country. And here comes the feeling of chauvinism or nationalism. I belong to a certain group, and the love and the affection you have with that group and the individuals. I raise the flag of my country and I feel proud. That kind of idea. But that's only the identification with yourself in accord with that group. And that kind of that level of our own psyche, per definition, also divides us from other groups.
Definitely. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's the way it is. It's not a judgment. That's the way it is. And that was the problem before Camelot existed. And there was this idea of raising a kingdom under which the different tribes or nationalities could actually come together and form a unity.
Yeah, like have a common banner, a common symbol, or a common goal, that it didn't matter the differences between one or the others. Then they would rally together and then create something greater. And this is really interesting because it reminds me a little bit about what happened when Spain was born, because the country, it didn't exist as such. Actually, when Hernán Cortés arrived to what is now Mexico, Spain didn't exist as a country either. So what did the king and the queen did? Like they said, okay, we are different groups, even with different languages. How are we going to bring people together? And they use Catholicism as their banner to bring them together and create their own, like, so-called Camelot, no? So it's interesting that you mentioned this, because I'm going to go back a little bit talking about the ants. There is an intelligence. It's not random. There is an intelligence when these natural kingdoms are being built. But this intelligence is not aware of itself. It's very animal in a way. It's like very intuitive. There is knowledge because the little ants know what to do and how to do that, but they are not aware of what they're doing. They're just going by instinct. And so we are moving from this part up to the Yesod, no? To say, okay, now I am aware that I am a human, for example, but I'm not just any kind of human, no? Like I am, for example, me, I could say I am Mexican, no? And you can say, oh, I'm Dutch. And we can all play a different identity, no? But in the end, we're all human beings. So it's moving from this mirror, no? Like the smoke and mirrors of appearances, no? And say, okay, do we want to keep our consciousness here, like still in a very animal level, so to speak, no? Or do we want to aim at something higher, something more sublime, something even divine on earth, no? But you see, what you're talking about right now, it's like that procession between one level and then, like, you have to go through all of the levels. You cannot skip one. Am I correct?
No, No, exactly. Very correct. If you skip one, there are many ways of describing this. But for example, in Kabbalistic terms, they say you have to purify all the levels and integrate them. Otherwise, they will, as it were, backfire on you. You always have to eventually go back to a certain level to, to reestablish what is necessary to complete the tree of life.
Exactly.
So that's exactly the point. And if you look at yes of number 9, that consumerist vegetable level of conditionings within our tribal functioning, it is one level higher, which is the animal level. That's the triad of 8, Hod, 6, Tiferet, and 7, Netzach. That triad is called the animal triad. It's still, as you can see, within the lower phase. So it's still within the natural kingdom. And here we find those individuals who seem to awake to that vegetable level. And they say, well, I can, as it were, grow out myself out of that dependency, and I can lead these people. So these are political leaders, economical leaders, whoever it is, individuals who grow out of that level. But nevertheless, they are still dependent upon what's going on in the natural world. So these are, for example, the kings and queens in our history, who, although they have a kind of hierarchical superposition in society, they are still extremely dependent upon what their country is about and their position.
Definitely, yes.
Yeah. So that means that, excuse me, the king or queen, its identity is always in a kind of accordance, in an interplay with what's going on in the lower worlds.
So it could be like the king or queen, obviously they're gonna adhere to the culture, the traditions, and it's a sense of pride. Like I've noticed that, for example, with the British people, they are so proud of their king and their queen, no, and their traditions. And obviously for me as an American, and I say American in the sense that we are all American in the American continent, not just the people from the United States, no. So when I say an American, as an American, when I see that, and I see through their mythology and their narrative, I say, okay, I understand why they feel this pride, their sense of identity, identification, and belonging to this group. And for me, it doesn't make much sense because obviously my identity, my culture, it's all very different. So if, let's say that for some reason, Britain invaded Mexico right now, and they tried to make us like love King Charles III, people would not be very happy because like, what does he have to say to me as a Mexican, no? Or the other way around, no? If we brought like, I don't know, any famous people from Mexico and say, now he's gonna be your king or she's gonna be your queen, in England they're gonna be, what? These are apes, no? These are crazy people. Because we're like monkeys, and I say that with all the love and respect to my people, but we are very playful and very crazy. It wouldn't work. Why? Because the values, the story, the culture, like everything that our mythology is completely different. So it makes sense that the king or queen would have to adhere to the establishment, and because they are the incarnation of the establishment, no?
Well, that's exactly right, and the authorities in Tiferet, in the animal triad there, they are there also to uphold the traditions. So it is limited to a certain set of symbols and a set of ethics there. And if there's no knowledge above that, then you have, of course, a self-limited organization there, a kingdom for that matter. And of course, the upper what we are going to talk about much more also in next episodes of the podcast is the upper countenance, or the upper part of the tree, is where we find, the transpersonal or transcultural aspects. And that's also the domain of Avalon.
Mm-hmm.
So then we are going to look at ourselves and to this earthly kingdom from a metaphysical perspective.
Yes.
So this world and the natural world, that's what we're talking about, is what it is built upon certain principles.
Mm-hmm.
But what we see from a personal perspective are often the differences between Mexican culture, Dutch culture, English, Japanese, Aborigine cultures. But they're all based upon the same principles. And that is the wisdom of the higher worlds in Kabbalah or of Avalon. They teach metaphysics, which is transpersonal knowledge, which we can integrate and apply to the lower phase, to the natural levels there. But if there's no knowledge of the higher worlds or of Avalon, and there's no support from Avalon, and we do not support, that higher place, and we think we can do it ourselves, then we have a problem.
Yes.
And we have seen this, of course.
Yes, because
and that
you will not have that connection, as you say, and maybe what moves your interests will be a very 3D impulse, no?
Yeah.
And you will lie, you will manipulate, which is happening right now here in my country, I must say, sadly.
Yeah.
Our leaders, they are all about power and manipulating people and just taking advantage of everybody. So I could say without hesitation that we are operating in the lowest level of the tree, but maybe there are governments, or there have been governments in other countries or in other cultures in the past, and this is where the archetype of Camelot and Avalon come together, that what they're trying to do is bring down heaven on earth, as you have told us many times before, right?
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Well, the problem is with many, I'm generalizing now, but with many of our political leaders in the world at large, but also sometimes with even religious leaders, is they have no metaphysical knowledge.
No.
And not even knowledge, but also experience. So there is just no way that there's knowledge about Avalon or the higher world, so let alone to bring it into manifestation.
Of course.
And this has always been the case. It's about individuals who make a difference. And that's why, that's not for now, but Avalon orchestrates, as it were, a certain situation that a king, individual, may come to pass or awake from a slumber or a sleep to re-establish a higher kingdom, a kingdom of humanity, not of just a natural kingdom, but a kingdom of humanity. And that is really also a very important Kabbalistic reference here, because again, the lower phase is also about the natural levels within us. That's all fine. But the human level starts at the triad of Tiferet, Gevura, number 5, and Hesed in number 4. That's the soul triad. And that's where we can realize what it means to be human. Yeah, wonderful. Thank you.
It's a bit lost. I'm going to change the color.
Okay. I understand.
Maybe this one? Yes. Much better.
Yeah. Very good. Yeah, wonderful. So that triad is with it the center Tiferet, the self, the essence of an individual and the essence of the human being, together with these two, well, you could say moral qualities within us of a moralistic choice and free will and conscience. They are the seat of human consciousness. But everything below there, again, I'm repeating myself, but that is our natural participation in the natural world, in the natural kingdom. So anything established only on the lower face of the tree is not, by per definition, a kingdom that rests upon the soul or humanity. And of course, then what comes out of that kingdom as a rulership and a regulation of life is in conformity with the level of where we are. So the idea of Camelot is to establish a kingdom based upon that triad there.
Okay.
So a gathering of souls, not of animals.
Obviously.
And of course, yeah, and we have, and we still do, operate like animals, like
yes,
groups of animals coming together. And sometimes, it goes well and sometimes it doesn't go well.
Yes.
So the soul is like, let's say, the condition where we can operate in the lower phase of the tree, in the natural kingdom, but also establish a contact with the higher worlds. So Camelot is like the doorway. It's a kingdom like a doorway between a higher dimension, Avalon, and the ordinary world, which we have called many times the world of low grass. Yeah, okay. That's the world where we live in. And not just the outside world, the exterior world, but also the inner personal world.
Yes.
With at the center, Yesod again, number 9. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. This is super interesting because, as you say, if you don't have this foundation, even though the name of Yesod is foundation, you actually need the foundation of Malkut. Because if you don't have this one, then the rest cannot unfold as it should. But it is true. And I'm just thinking right now, being the state of affairs as what it is in the world, I feel that there's a lot of density right now. Or maybe I'm more aware of it because when you're working with Kabbalah, when you're studying and applying Kabbalah to your life, you start moving from Malkut to Yesod, and then you are trying to make your way up to Tiferet, no? And you have a different awareness or consciousness about life and about your surroundings, your people, your conditions. But I don't know why I feel like the density, this animal consciousness, so to speak, I feel that it's very, very prevalent right now. So it's good that you're telling us about Avalon, because I do wonder, no, it's a little bit like we're also waiting. This is interesting, by the way, because we're talking about archetypes. So here in Mexico, we talk about Quetzalcoatl, which is a feather serpent, which would be the equivalent to Jesus Christ, or in this case, Arthur. Because and we will surely talk about this mythology later on, because we won't have enough time to do everything in one program. I think we will have to record like 15 of this one, because there's so much to talk about. My pleasure. No? But so we have this archetype of this solar archetype, no? And so Quetzalcoatl said he would return. He brought culture to Mexico. He said he would return. Jesus, he said, I will return. And Arthur, always like we're waiting for Arthur to come back, no? And bring that awareness and bring us back to Camelot. So I don't know, like I'm thinking everything that you're saying right now, I'm thinking, and this kind of is like a question. I hope that I can get to say the question properly, because I'm trying to wrap my head around this. I feel a lot of density right now in the world. And it's discouraging sometimes. And I'm sure that people who are listening to us right now might also be feeling that density and the darkness. And it's so hard sometimes to be incarnated in this world, especially when you're so sensitive to all of these energies. And you're longing for something more subtle, more divine, more connected to truth and love. So what could you say that maybe we are living this density right now because we're preparing for this coming back of Avalon, or this connection to Avalon and the return of the king? Or
that's quite possible what you're saying, and it's really a very relevant, the thing that you bring up, because like on the hero's journey, for most of us, from the soul, we have to find or experience an urgency in life. or a density or a pressure to start moving. And we can see that in the lower phase of the tree, we just can't find the solutions any longer. You know, our politicians, our economical leaders, the scientists, they can't find the resolution to end the war or, you know, other economical problems or hunger or whatever it is in the world. So there has to be an urgency. What we are trying to do, first of all, is to find our own individual movement. And how does the inner king awaken from its slumber and start connecting our normal daily life with the world of the spirit? So that would be, now we're going a bit ahead in the story, but we'll come to that another time.
Yeah.
That's the inner sleeping King Arthur within every person, the sovereign, who awakens from its sleep in Avalon, the spiritual realm, and from there comes into the world. So that's a dawning of consciousness rather than a real birth or a physical coming. And from there reestablishes again the higher kingdom of humanity or Camelot. And thereby also not just establishing a kingdom, but also making things in order in the lower phase of the tree. So where we have, for example, Malkut, that's the mineral level. Yesod, number 9, is the vegetable level. And then the triad of 7, 8, and 6, that's the animal triad. These correspond to the 3 lower chakras in the Eastern system. So that's basically, you know, Malkut would be everything to do with security and food. And 9, everything to do, of course, with propagation, with sex, but the continuity of life. And the 3rd animal chakra or part level there has to do with power and self-expression. Now, these things are often, again, under the law of nature. So it has to do with me as an ego. How do I express that in life? And how do I maybe express that in the in-group, in my tribe? And it doesn't go any further than that. So we cannot establish a greater kingdom uniting individuals and little kingdoms in itself if we can't raise our consciousness up to the level of humanity. So that density, if I explain myself well here to your question, is we just have to come to a sense of, well, you know, I just can't do it by myself, or we obviously can't solve problem. So where does it have to come from? And well, you know, you can't raise yourself by your own arm. So it has to come from a different consciousness, a different domain. And that's the whole story here of Avalon.
No, yes, please go ahead. Sorry.
No, it's fine. It's fine. I'm done.
Okay, it's just that I'm thinking that because many people are waiting for the savior.
Yeah.
Name the savior as you wish. As we said, it could be Jesus, Quetzalcoatl, could be Arthur, could be you. Like the archetype is the same, maybe different name, but the archetype is the same. So if you're only waiting for that to happen, that's not what this is about. I think, like from what I'm understanding from what you're saying is rather we have to become that savior, each in our own, because we have to become the receptacle to that energy, awaken it in us. And then when people who are doing this kind of work and they are awakening, and then we find each other, and then we could create a Camelot. But as long as we are only waiting for, Jesus will come and save me and take away my sins, but I'm gonna keep sinning, no? And like I don't care, I'm gonna keep sinning, and I'm gonna be the same as I usually am. I'm gonna be angry all the time, and I'm gonna be like spreading misery around me. But Jesus, it's okay because Jesus will come, no? So
Yeah,
if we
well,
do
again,
that, then
yeah,
like Avalon
that
cannot connect with our Camelot, right?
no, it's like waiting for Avalon to come to us, and
Mm,
we, as like you described it just yet, we as a human being or humanity, we don't have to change anything. We are waiting for the help from heaven or whatever you want to call it, and that's sometimes a religious dogma, not always, but some churches or temples or you know
mm,
they believe this to be true. And of course, we had a lot of problems about this, and
mm,
Jesus was hanged for it on the cross.
mm.
Um, but some others, like churches or communities, or in a mythology like this, they say no, has nothing to do with an exterior person, but it has to do with, like the Christmas story, the light has to be reborn within you,
Exactly.
not as a second Jesus being born in the world, but the Savior has to come out of you. And
Hmm.
do you prepare for it? Like a mother prepares for the birth of a child. Do
Exactly.
you attune yourself and make yourself ready as a space for reception, like you just said? That's
Hmm.
a whole different story.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's better, but that's the esoteric version of the Messiah or the Savior or the Redeemer within you.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It makes me think about, now that you're mentioning that, when I was studying, because I had other teachers before meeting Mike, and we were studying the Hebrew letters, and we were talking about Aleph, the first letter. And
yeah,
there's like these two aspects of the letter, they're coming together at a point, no? And so my
yeah,
teacher was saying, it's like the story of Moses. Moses had to go up the mountain to meet God.
mm,
God didn't come down to
yes,
him. So it was, they met at a certain point. So Moses had to go
mm,
up, and then God came down through the
yeah,
burning bush to talk to him. No? So it was like a meeting in the
certainly,
middle point. Like, we cannot be expecting for illumination to come to us if we don't do our work and all try to go up there and to reach out and to meet God
yeah,
or divinity creation, the one
mm,
power, the Hunabku, however you want to call it. If we don't
yes,
do that, then it's not like the connection cannot be made. We also have to make our effort to leave this lower phase, no, and start moving
mm,
to the Tiferet at least to start making
yes.
that connection. If not, that's not going to happen, right?
That's exactly the focal point in the whole operation
Mm,
is to find that balancing point between above and below, and also between right and left. No,
exactly.
exactly, and it's been you mentioned the letter Aleph, but in other classical texts like the Zohar, the Bahir, this is being spoken about in many different ways. And very
Mm,
simply put, they said, or God speaks to us and says, if you approach me, I will approach you. If you reach out to me, I will reach out to you. And if you come to me, I will heal you. But if you will remove yourself from me, you will be sick. This is not just a dogmatic idea of saying uh, you will be rewarded if you look me, search for me and find. But it's like a symbiosis, an inner movement
exactly.
towards divinity is also divinity finding itself through your own searching,
Exactly.
and
That's
then
it.
a healing will will occur through it, a wholeness. Yes, yeah, that's an aleph.
I'm trying to do my best, but in the computer is a bit like, we have an aleph right here. It looks a little bit better. But what I'm
Yes.
just trying to illustrate with this is like this point, like this would be like God coming down, and then this would be like
Mhm.
Moses going up, and then they meet
Yeah,
right here in the middle. So that's more
yeah,
or less the idea behind that. And it makes a lot of sense to me now that we
mm.
see this image. And I'm sorry, it's like I know I'm like a kindergartner when it comes to drawing here on the computer, but you
Yeah.
get the sense of what I'm saying. So that's it. No, we're moving from the lower part, start moving
Hmm.
up so that then the energy can come down and then we can start connecting.
Certainly. certainly, yes. No, very interesting. The whole, of course, alphabet included in the whole story. Um, and Moses is a kind of savior and has some parallels with King Arthur. Moses, for example, sometimes being said he goes up the mountain of Sinai, but if in the Hebrew, you can also translate it as going into the mountain, like Arthur did.
Okay.
So you go into the earth to retrieve the holiness and the contact with divinity, and that's quite. It looks and it sounds similar than what Moses did there. But anyway,
okay.
So yeah,
Okay.
so
So we
that's
have
the answer about pressure. Yeah.
yeah. So we have now the foundation, the understanding of how this is going. Like this is giving us the understanding of why Avalon and Camelot are important from the
Yes.
Kabbalistic perspective, not the mythologic perspective. And for
Yeah.
now, we have to stop. So we
I guess
haven't really
so.
talked about Avalon in the mythological sense, but this is very important because we're talking about the foundation, which will help us understand better the mythology when we continue
Yes.
in the next programs. So
Yeah.
I don't know if there's anything you would like to add, dear Mike, for our
Well,
listeners.
for our listeners who follow this program or from now on intend to do so, it could be nice for the continuity of this story to meditate, contemplate every day upon, what do you see in your own inner kingdom when it comes to our natural impulses. We are all part of the natural kingdom. And what are the moments that you recognize the kingdom of humanity within you, your own Camelot? And you may recognize it when you are awake to what's going on.
Yeah.
That's first of all, self-consciousness. And also that you say, yeah, I'm part of it, but I can also see from a distance what is going on. And I have a choice in maybe not following the natural impulse, but choosing for something deeper or higher in that sense,
Yeah.
a deeper morality, a
With
higher
meaning, no, like
morality.
give meaning to our lives, even in the most simple of activities. You can make it a sacred moment.
That's it. Exactly. Yeah. A new
Excellent.
judgment, not,
Yeah.
not in the sense of judging people, but a new judgment about yourself and how can I do things better and how do I bring my life and that others to a more wholeness
Yeah.
in everyday life. Because
Yeah.
mind you, what we talked about in the three tables, the lower countenance, the lower part of the tree of life, is the lower circle. And that's the way of action. So I would like to playfully suggest that we all have a look at that.
Yeah.
So I hope
That's
that,
good.
that's a clear idea. Yeah.
Yeah. Wayne Dyer used to say, like, how may I serve? No? You can ask, like, how may I serve what is surrounding me? How may I serve,
Yes.
like, the greater divinity? So it can be the
Yes.
simple things or greater things. Now we have this understanding through the tree of life. And I would invite you,
Yeah.
Syncronauts, to check out our previous programs when we were talking about the three tables, so you can understand a bit more of what Mike just said a moment ago. And then you will have a little
Yes.
bit more context about it. But it's interesting, like
Mm.
sometimes it feels like the spiritual realm is very far away, no? And we can only access it until we are dead. But now we're
Yeah.
saying no, you can access it through your own life every day, day by day. So that is very important to be reminded of. And
Very much.
so tell me, dear Mike, how can people contact you if they have any questions or if they want to know about your courses or even if they want to buy your books? How can we get
Yeah.
in touch with you?
Well, two websites. The first one is Circle of Avalon, one word, .nl, Netherlands. And the other one is Kabbalah Mystical School, one word, .com.
Okay.
And there you can find the different activities. And if you want to send me an email with questions or questions about the book, then do so. It's also on the website, and otherwise it's mikebais. So that's also one word, mikebais at rocketmail.com. That would be the quickest one to reach me.
All right. Yeah. Very good. Well, thank you, dear Mike, for this first program talking about Avalon, which
pleasure.
might seem like, what does it have to do with Avalon? You will see. So you have to come back and check out what we're going to be posting in the coming weeks. So I want to thank you, dear Mike. Thank you, Synchronauts, for being here with us. And if you want to contact me, you already know, Mexxicamelot with a double X. It's interesting, no, that our endeavors, you are Circle of Avalon and I'm Mexxicamelot. So we have a saying here in Mexico, God makes them and then they get together and they do shenanigans. And that's exactly what we're trying to do, spiritual fun shenanigans, no? And share with you all. So thank you so much, dear Mike. Thank you, Synchronauts. And we'll see each other very soon. Take care. And until next time, bye.
See you next time.